So, Gunner's Lair is out. It's not my main objective here, but I figured best be acknowledged. To be frank, the main reason why it's not my main objective here is because I think I need more time before I really give, you know, definitive thoughts on it. I need more time to become familiar not only with the mixtape, but with the genres that Violet has pulled from in order to make this album. Because, to be frank, I'm not very familiar at all with hip hop, which is definitely a blind spot that I'm going to be trying to acknowledge. I'm a white guy, so it's just not something that really reached me. A very sheltered one, mind you. But again, something I want to address because what I can say is that I like the album quite a bit. The album mixtape, I kind of use them interchangeably. It is labeled a mixtape. I like it. And so I'm sure that I would like a lot of the influences that Violet has pulled from. So I'm going to be exploring that stuff. Until then, don't think I'm going to be saying much. What I'm really here to talk about, oh, right, favorite tracks, Outlaw, and the title track. Anyway, what I'm really here to talk about is Stranger Things. Remember that show? If you can believe it, I'm not actually going to be talking about the 5th season because I haven't seen it yet. I've seen things about it. Oh, I've seen things about it. But I haven't seen it. But with, the 5th season being out and all and the show being wrapped up, a friend and I decided to just watch back through the series. In the same vein as another friend of mine and I watching through Game of Thrones, knowing that at a certain point it does just crash and burn. So, got that to look forward to. But in the meantime, we have just finished the 2nd season. And as you might have guessed by me being out here, I have thoughts. And ideally, these thoughts are not going to be interrupted by, gales of wind. Last episode was a little bit rough. I'm going to be doing everything in my power to avoid that. It does not feel windy today, but I am couched between some houses. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm going to try to go out to that sports complex that I usually do, but if I get out of the neighborhood proper and it starts getting windy, I'm just going to turn back because I don't want to subject you all to that again. And also, I don't want to have to go into CapCut and manually lower the volume of those sections in order to make them bearable. So that's what's going to be going on. I'm going to be talking about this show. So, Stranger Things. I first watched the show not too long after it came out. When there started to be buzz about it, because it was a pretty big deal when it came out, but it took me a little bit to get on the ball with it. So I watched it and I thoroughly enjoyed it as fucking, I don't know how old I would have been. I don't know when it came out. I would have been early high school, I would guess. I was a youngin'. I wasn't quite very media literate at that point. I enjoyed it. It's cool sci-fi show, cool monster. Oh man, they revealed what it looks like at the end. Boo, it's not as scary anymore. That's kind of the extent of my thoughts. And then I revisit the show as a somewhat media literate adult, and I probably enjoy it even more now, honestly. All right, so here's the thing, guys. We might have all forgotten because, the 5th season, it happened and there was a bunch of bullshit around it, but The first season of Stranger Things is just damn good TV. It's a good show. Not a masterpiece, maybe, but like I'm kind of struggling to find fault with it. I struggle to find fault with it. It's really good. And boy, did I miss some stuff. What kind of stuff did I miss? Subtext, primarily. Okay. There are some conspiracy theories surrounding not only season 5, but as a result of season 5. I think we all heard of I don't remember what it is. They attached a gate at the end, which I guess is just the thing you do with conspiracy theories now. It's basically the theory that, like, the finale of season 5 was a fake finale, and we were going to have some kind of rug pull from Netflix, and the true finale was going to be revealed. You know, that whole thing. Not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the theory that one of the Duffer Brothers' wives wrote either the first season or first few seasons of Stranger Things. And this is kind of used as a way to explain the dip in writing quality that many people say, you know, occurred. Now, not only have I not really looked into this extensively, but as far as I'm aware, even if I were to look into it, there's not much ground for this theory. As far as I'm aware. As always, if I ever say anything incorrect or could be, you know, more educated on a topic, please do educate me. If we have a valid source for this or valid reasons to believe that this is the case, then let me know. Because right now, the main thing that I've got going on in my brain in regards to that theory is that, like, the first season of Stranger Things, again, please correct me if I'm wrong or off base, feels to me like a pretty, like, feminine story. Allow me to try to explain. I guess just to get it out of the way, like, I had heard this theory before watching the first season, so maybe that's coloring my perception of the show, but just watching it, I was kind of taken aback by how just the things that the show, like, decided to show. Two of my favorite scenes from that season. One is in a pretty early episode, and Elle is hiding in the I forget their last name, Wheeler's house. Elle is hiding in the Wheeler's house. Everybody's gone, including Mike. So she's just kind of alone, and she's fucking around with stuff, finding out how a TV works. You know, finding out how the recliner works. Or no, I think Mike showed her how to use the recliner. But the notable scene here is that scene opens, Elle walks into Nancy's room, who, you know, in the series is a teenage girl. And she has these, like, photos up of, like, friends and her just doing stuff. I'm sure she looks at some other stuff, but then the scene caps off with Elle just, like, opening up a music box and checking it out. No dialogue throughout the scene. And then after a little bit of seeing her just looking around this stranger's room, scene just ends and it moves on. And I love that fucking scene. I love it. Because first of all, good fucking luck getting a scene like that into a show nowadays. With how, you know, we're living in an attention economy. A scene like that, I mean, I did not remember that scene was even there. And that's probably because as a, stupid little kid, I just entirely wrote it off because I probably would have perceived it as just nothing happening. But oh my god. It seems like are exactly why I take a stance against a strict every scene must have a purpose mindset. Because this scene, in no real tangible way, it definitely doesn't affect the plot. This has nothing to do with the plot at all. The most you can say is that it gives characterization to Elle, but it's pretty subtle. Again, the scene doesn't really, I guess, push anything onto you or insist on anything. It really is just seeing a little girl wandering around a room, and you're left to realize oh god, she's the reason that she's looking at these things with kind of wonder and curiosity is because she's seeing the life that was basically robbed from her. This is the big thing that really impressed me with the first season of Stranger Things, is that it's never forgotten for a second that Elle is a little girl who had her life robbed from her. And this scene is pretty much primarily there to demonstrate that. It's just Elle observing the life of a normal girl, hanging out with her friends and having a nice decorated room and having little knickknacks that she just has around. These are things that Elle never got to have and never got to experience. And the entire point of the scene is just to highlight and ruminate on that, which is, it's fucking great. It's great. Please put more scenes like that in shows. I'll get to it. The other favorite scene of mine in this show is in, I think, the second to last episode, penultimate episode. It's when the gang is preparing to make a sensory deprivation tank area for Elle, because Elle is going to try to find Will, with her powers, but they got to set up a sensory deprivation tank in the pool or whatever. But before this happens, God, I wish I remembered her name. I think it's Winona Ryder's character. Is that a cat? That is a cat. Hey, buddy. Hope you're doing all right. Okay, Will Byers. Fuck. I might have to just look up the actress's name. Not the actress's name. I'm pretty sure her name is Winona Ryder. The character's name, it's the Byers family. Will Byers. This is running. Well, part of the thing is this is really running counter to my fucking point. I'm remembering the names of the male characters and not the female character. Oh, it's embarrassing. Fuck. Okay. I'm gonna just give me a second. Just cut the tape. Her name is Joyce Byers. Joyce Byers is, one of the highlights of the first season. Winona Ryder is an amazing actress and portrays the character amazingly, and she's just a really great character, So anyway, it's Joyce basically preparing Elle for this, and they're alone together, and Joyce just takes the time to tell Elle how brave she is for doing this, and telling her, like, hey, if you need us to pull you out, just say so. I'm gonna be there the whole time, and we're gonna take care of you. And again, I just tell us if anything is wrong, and we will pull you out. You're very, very brave for doing this, but we're gonna prioritize your safety first. And that, again, that's the scene. And like, man, because not only is it just great to see a scene where a woman is assuring another, female character, a child no less, that like she's gonna be there to protect her and to like just be there for her, showing support for her. But it serves as such brilliant, beautiful contrast to, what we saw when Elle was in the lab, where, all these guys basically just said, stick in her tank, and the whole like thing around her time in the labs is that it was so traumatic, and she was treated so poorly that the stress caused her to open the rift to the upside down that led to the show happening. And in contrast, we have this woman, this mother, who makes sure Elle knows that she's going to be safe, and makes sure that she knows like how courageous it is for her to do this, and just probably recognizing in some respects that it's so unfair for a little girl to have to do this. I mean, just the whole thing of it is that this is so incredibly unfair to Elle, that she had to have this life, that she kind of has this burden of having these abilities and to be chased by these government agents for having those abilities. And it's just a cool, great scene between women. And then just thinking about how, there's this whole thing going on with Joyce where, frankly, she does sound kind of crazy. Hanging up lights around her home, saying that her son who's gone missing is talking to her through the lights and through the phone that's now fucking destroyed. In some respects, you don't blame Mr. Hopper. I have thoughts on him for, being skeptical. But I remember the scene where, he's done some investigating. Okay, I mean, first of all, like, I'm not a Hopper stan. Again, I'll get to it. But in fairness, like, good on him for not just dismissing this, for hearing Joyce be so insistent that her son is alive, and him going, maybe there's something to this, and like investigating. Because it's through this investigation that he then, uncovers a lot of things. He uncovers that Hawkins like planted a body and tried to say it was Will. And right, like, one of the plot points is that, they have this body, say it's Will, show it to Joyce, and she doesn't buy any of it. She's like, no, they're full of shit. That wasn't Will. And again, so Hopper investigates, and he discovers that she was right. And there was a scene where he goes to her house and is like, hey, you were right. And again, I have been societally conditioned as a man for 24 years of life. So this is all kind of like an outside looking in perspective. I don't know what it is like to be a woman, but knowing what I know about how our culture and our society tends to treat women, I can't imagine how like gratifying it would be, or how gratifying it would feel to have this guy, this authority figure, even look you in the eyes and say you were right, because that so often does not happen. Women are so often dismissed or treated with, like, frankly, ridiculous amounts of skepticism, unhealthy skepticism, to the point where, you know, these real issues are ignored because, you know, a lot of men in society tend to, like, I don't know, like, just tend to distrust women. That's kind of the gist of it, you know? And so, you know, I see that scene, and just the scenes involving, like, girlhood and motherly care and caring for another woman, and just the, you know, strong female perspectives, especially with Joyce, and to some extent with Eleven, you know, even though she is a child. And I'm just watching this season thinking, this is just more female focused than you typically see on TV. Don't get me wrong, lots of man and boy stuff going on, certainly. You know, Hopper is one of the main characters. The main four, like, I guess you consider them, are all boys. Mike, Will, Dustin, and, all right, I feel like such a shitbag. I'm sorry. One moment. Lucas. Honestly, that's just me being a dumbass. Is there some, like, what's the fucking term? Internalized racism going on in there? Very possible. Lucas, Dustin, Mike, and Will, the main four boys. Again, some of the main characters are all guys. The main cop character is a guy. But, like, I was just struck by the female focus that the story has, and I'm gonna be honest, like, I'm sure it's not even that female focused, right? But if a fucking somewhat cis guy like me is taking note of that, then it is kind of indicative of what the trends are, what our culture tends to be, which is a heavy male focus. So, did that maybe contribute to Stranger Things' success? Maybe. I think it was mostly just the solid storytelling and the, like, you know, 80s nostalgia, let's be real. But I do think that this attention to the female characters and this undercurrent of, like, violation and the robbing of innocence that is absent in a lot of stories really does elevate the quality of this first season. So if you couldn't tell, I do think that the second season was a bit of a step down. So why do I think that the second season was a bit of a step down? Well, I could probably answer that question more thoroughly if I had, like, more time, did more thinking about it, took notes or whatever. What I can tell you right now is that just the vibes were a little bit different. I don't even really know how to fully encapsulate why I just didn't enjoy season 2 as much, but I think part of it has to do with I think part of it is that that stuff about, like, wow, this is a very cool female-focused story, that was not really there. Now, female characters do get their time in the limelight, and they are, like, good. I don't think Do I think Jim Hopper is poorly written? Not necessarily. I just think the narrative doesn't treat him the way he ought to be treated. Well, I'll get to that. Nobody here is poorly written. I don't think the story is poorly written. I think it's like fine. If Stranger Things season 1 is an 8 out of 10, season 2 is like a 6 or the number that comes after 6. And that's good. If I wrote a 6 out of 10 story that also made a bajillion dollars, I'd be pretty happy. But it's just, I didn't feel like that focus was there anymore. And I think the big thing is that it just didn't feel like, it felt like the story was almost like done acknowledging the things and acknowledging the undercurrents that were present in season 1, because I guess I didn't state it explicitly when I was going over season 1, but like the whole situation Elle was in, locked inside of a room for almost her entire life, but with this older man basically making himself a very prominent presence in her life, having her call him Papa, and having her like stay in this very, I won't say cushy, but like, there's a drawing on the wall, a very crude drawing on the wall of him and her holding hands, kind of keeping her in this childlike-ish space, but also having her do very adult things that frankly she has no business doing at her age. There's some heavy subtext there. And I say maybe I'm reading too deep into it, but like, I'm going to be honest, I think this is something that I want to state with my chest until, I'm given reason to believe otherwise. I think that there's absolutely an undercurrent of like, what would you call it? I know there's another word for it. I mean, like, grooming is the word that comes to mind. I mean, the environment that she was living in was just patently abusive, like physically and psychologically. I would perhaps posit that there is some subtext of this being a sexually abusive environment as well. I'm also thinking of a scene early on when Mike, I think in some way, tries to touch Elle and she like recoils. That's a very common symptom of that particular type of trauma. And like, again, it's not ever explicitly stated, but I think there's enough there to say that there was probably some thought put into there. And I really appreciate the show for that, because it's not something you see all that often. And then you don't get that, or any like real mention or acknowledgement or even subtext of it in the second season. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just feels like it was dumbed down a little. Like all that subtext, all those little details, all those extra scenes that really made these themes feel more potent and these characters feel more like real are just not there anymore. It's a lot more simple of a tale. Yeah, not necessarily a bad thing, but like I'm taking it as what it is. It's just not as engaging to me as the first season. No, okay, where do I go from here? There's an elephant in the room and he's asking me to acknowledge him. It's kind of like, you know what? No. Okay, actually, no, this works perfectly. Okay. Jimothy Hopper. Jimothy Hopper. All right. So, Mr. Jimmy, Mr. Beast, he, for one, is a cop. For two, in this first season, I would say that he's like, you know, a fine character. He's a good, upstanding guy. The main, like, thing with, oh, he's a cop, is that it is just, like, pretty propaganda-y, I guess, to, like, you know, portray a cop in that light, especially without any kind of acknowledgement of the systems of police. Like, he does seem more driven and competent than the others at the station, but there's really nothing in there saying like, oh yeah, this is a pretty much inherently corrupt system and he's actively going against it. Like, nah, he's a good cop, and there's not really any bad cops in the story unless you count the guys at the Hawkins labs or whatever, but they're not really cops, are they? And so, you know, when you do that kind of thing, it does serve as propaganda. That's like kind of a separate thing, usually, from just like looking at the morality of the character. But it's okay, because Hopper does, like any real cop, become a shithead in the second season. Don't you know, most cops, when they get to the second season of their lives, just dirtbags. I mean, like, what I'm trying to say is that ACAB does include Jim Hopper, not only because he's a cop, but also because he's a fucking piece of shit. I see the attempts that the show makes to try to justify Jimmy Beast's actions and to, like, get an apology out of him, basically, and to acknowledge, at least to some extent, the ramification of his actions. But it is not good enough. It is not even close to good enough. The argument that, okay, well, it's multiple things. Like, let's start from just the ground level. So, when we hop into season 2, Elle is, you know, stuck, just use the proper terminology here, in Hopper's cabin. He's saying, like, you know, he's making an effort of some kind to take care of her, but he does tell her, like, no, you can't even, like, step outside. You can't even look outside because, hey, I'm trying to keep you safe. You got it? So, let's rewind a little bit. So, at Hawkins' lab, Elle was stuck in a very confined space, not allowed to have any kind of childhood or any real experiences at all, because she was kept there by an older man who almost certainly assured her that he's doing all of this for her own good and to keep her safe. And then we cut to season 2, where Elle is prevented from going out and meeting people or having any real experiences by an older man who is insisting that he's doing this for her own good and for her safety. So, you know, reasonably so. Elle is a little bit anxious in this environment. I've put all my scientists on on this case. I've put all my investigators on this case, and we're trying to get to the bottom of why Elle might feel anxious in this situation. It's an ongoing thing anyway. So, like, that's at the base level, by the way. And this anxiety mounts, and it's clear Elle is fucking tired of, being trapped while she knows that people she loves are out there. And then, tension builds. Oh, and, through all this, fucking Hopper's, like, lying to her and stringing her along, saying, like, oh, yeah, you'll get to do this eventually. Constantly pushing past the deadline and telling her that her mom is fucking dead. Anyway, tensions finally come to a head, and they have a big argument. And I'm very fortunate that I did not live in an abusive household, because this scene makes me upset to watch from the little cushy life that I had. I can't imagine anybody who actually was in a stressful domestic environment watching this scene, because it is a stressful scene. I'm sure that was the intent. But so I guess just as a little recap, Hopper basically gets fucking pissed at her because I think she did something. Yeah. Okay, so sorry. The more I think about this season, the more beef I have with it. I might lower that score. I don't know. Anyway, what happens is that Elle goes out. She goes out and she sees Mike. And she sees that Mike is in the proximity of another girl. She gets jealous and she runs off, assuming that Mike doesn't need her anymore. Now, listen. I'm very familiar with feelings of self-doubt, of worthlessness, of coming to the conclusion very quickly that people don't need you or, have replaced you. But this is such a tired trope. It's, I think, getting to the point where even general audiences are picking up on it. The whole, like, a character sees a fucking thing happening between two other characters without any fucking context, and they just leap to a conclusion that allows for, like, tension to further build. Just, like, Elle was trying to contact Mike for almost a year. And let's also bear in mind that, like, I mean, let's be real, Elle would probably develop depression due to her experiences. I'm not going to pretend to know, like, what exactly should be going on psychologically with this horribly traumatized, I don't actually know how old she is, little girl. I just know that, again, that's a tired trope, and just something of it reeks of male writer. Again, maybe that's me looking too into it. It's just kind of the girl is getting jealous of another girl over a guy that she likes. Like, all right, does that happen in real life? I'm sure, but certainly not explored with any kind of depth or attention to the women's feelings and all that. So anyway, that happens, and Hopper finds out, and he's pissed because it's breaking his fucking rules or whatever. And this escalates into a very heated argument. Like, he unplugs the TV. It gets, like, physical basically. Like, Elle's using her powers to keep the TV fixed because he threatens to, like, break it or take it away. And, oh my God. At one point, Hopper calls her a brat. Escalates into her, like, him banging on her bedroom door, fucking shouting at her as she's crying in the corner inside. So there's a couple things here. So first of all, I guess just kind of the obvious thing of making a lot of loud noises and shouting at a traumatized child. Good going there. There's the threatening to strip away basically the only form of stimulus that this developing child has in this cabin that you're keeping her locked inside of. Okay. But what just... No. It's not the zenith of my point here, but a very, very, like, big sticking point for me, something that fucking blew my mind when I was watching this episode, is Jim Hopper calling this fucking little girl who was kept in a fucking 6x6 room or whatever for most of her life, forced to do experiments that made her see fucking, like, horrors from beyond this dimension, forced to use her powers despite any damage it might be doing to her body, and was pushed to the point of fucking murdering 2 people because they were going to lock her inside of an even smaller little padded room. This girl, who has gone through more than fucking Hopper probably has in her short amount of life, is being called a brat by him because she's mad at him for keeping her in the same conditions that she was trying to escape from. And also, like, just I've lost track of my words here. He's calling her a brat for wanting to live a life and getting angry at him for being a general dickhead and keeping her in the same environment that she escaped from and constantly lying to her. I don't think that's actually really the mark of a brat. I don't think that a brat is someone who disrespects authority. It's more like, being ungrateful or being... I think that's a big thing, is just being, like, ungrateful or ungracious. But she's been very gracious. Almost a year. She's been in this fucking cabin, stripped of all of the things that she got to experience for a fleeting moment before, she had to kill a fucking demon and disappear into the woods so that the government crooks that are constantly hunting her don't take her back to the padded cell she used to live in. I'm probably just, like, the point is there. I've made it obvious already, but it's like unreal to me that any person who we are supposed to believe is any amount of rational would say that kind of thing, And just, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to, like, move mountains to get me to sympathize with someone who treats a child like that under any circumstances. Trauma aside, any guy who's gonna, like, bang at a bedroom door and shout at the child that they're taking care of, no, there's no fucking excuse for that. You're a piece of shit. You factor in that he picked up this child knowing that she's gone through horrible trauma. It's like a level of ignorance and callousness that I'm not going to excuse just because he has a dead daughter. What does the fucking dead daughter accomplish? It gives you some reason why he is very protective of her. Okay, great. That does not even begin to justify the way that he treats her and justify the complete ignorance and lack of self-awareness he seems to have. Because here's the fucking kicker. All right, so again, I think it's incredible ignorance on the part of the showrunners that we're supposed to sympathize with Hopper after that scene. That scene, I was done. I was off Team Hopper. He was dead to me. You don't come back from that. At that point, it's like, no, you depict him as a villain, or you have him like getting on his knees and saying sorry, and Elle going, nah, fuck you, bitch, and getting out of his life forever because that's what's best for her. That's what you do, because it's such fucking... Oh, he's such a shithead. He's such a piece of shit. Or, bare minimum, you convince me as the audience that you recognize that what this character is doing is like particularly insulting to this character specifically. Instead, we get that scene in the car where Hopper and Elle are driving to Hawkins' lab to go save the day. And, Hopper is talking to her, she's talking to him. He apologizes. That's real nice for you, man. He says he's being stupid. Understatement of the century, but, I guess you could say that. And Elle says, I've been stupid too. So, we're gonna, once again, just make it known. Perspective of characters does not equate to perspectives of the writers, right? So, Elle saying that would not necessarily lead me to believe that the writers do believe that, Elle was being a little stupid. So long as I'm given any reason to believe that, like, they recognize that that's horseshit and have some kind of, like, character moment or any level of acknowledgement at all that that's kind of an unreasonable thing for her to say. Like, maybe Hopper says, hey, no. I was the stupid one. I put myself in this position of authority, and I therefore take all responsibility for, what happened between us. Because not only was I being stupid, I was being kind of like a callous monster. In this, moment, like, completely lost sight of not only my duties as your protector, but just of you as a person and the things that you've gone through. I was completely ignorant to them, and I really should have done better to acknowledge your needs and your wants. What you did was not stupid. It was a natural, like, expression of those needs that you have and had been expressing to me for over a fucking year. Like, a little bit reckless, maybe, but completely understandable given the circumstances. So, no, 11, I would not say that you were being stupid. I would say that I'm a stupid piece of shit and you'd be better off without me. Something like that, I think, would kind of make me think more highly of the writers of this season, but we don't get that. like that line, "I've been stupid too," is so like obscenely ignorant of just Eleven as a character. It boggles the brain. It boggles the mind. Sorry, I just got like a flashbang of that one animation. I'm pretty sure there's a Jolteon in it and has that boggle your mind song in it. I'll link it or whatever. It's like, I know character stuff is difficult to grasp for some writers, but also like the thing with her sister happened 2 episodes ago. All right, here's what we'll do. We'll do a little recap of what Elle ended up doing that was so stupid. So I guess it would start with Elle disobeying Hopper's orders, leaving the cabin to, go see Mike. Was that stupid? So I guess again, as I said, a little bit reckless, certainly, because the one fucking point Hopper has is that, if ever she is seen by anybody, there's a risk of her getting caught. And yeah, like, but she knows that. Like, she's not an idiot. She's not stupid. She recognizes that she should try not to be seen, and that's why she clearly makes efforts to not be seen. But she is, and there's risk in that. However, Mr. Hopper, you gotta understand, you've been keeping her in the same fucking padded room that she just escaped from for almost a year. She's a little fucking girl. And again, she got a taste of the things she's been deprived of for, like, God knows how long. You can't expect her to just, like, know that's out there and not want it. Especially because, like, at this point, I can't say that. I can't say the threat is, like, vague and undefined. She was face to face with the threat multiple times. She knows it well. She knows it better than anyone. But clearly, she made the choice to, she chose to make that risk. And look, I don't know. We should recognize that children don't have fully developed brains, and sometimes they do stupid things without any, like, acknowledgement of potential consequences. But I also think we are far too quick to dismiss a child's agency, right? Especially this child, who in some respects is very, like, sheltered and unaware, but also in some respects has aged up significantly because of the horrible things that she's gone through. Like, there are areas where I'm sure she's more mature than a lot of adults. In fact, that part of the point, I think, that we see in some of season 1 is that she is more mature than some of these adults in Hawkins, So, that decision, reckless, but, like, extremely understandable. It's just keep that. It's understandable. And then she leaves a second time to go find her mom, who she had been told is dead and had to find out for her fucking self is not. Yeah, oopsie poopsie. Goes and finds her mom, reconnects with the mother that she never got to know because, she was stolen as a child. So that's got to do something for her. And then her mother tells her about this sister that she had. Probably not biological, but they were together in that lab. And this sister even, like, has a lot of memories of her, or at least some memories of her, and they connect over this basically. Actually, they. It just occurred to me that no, actually, they don't bond over the shared trauma. They bond over the fact that they both have psychic powers, which, you know, yes, valid thing to bond over. I'm okay with that, but, like, come on. She meets her sister, and she has this thing going. Her sister is a little bit of a dick. She does a little bit of emotional manipulation. I tried doing a bit there where I talked really fast. Does a little bit of emotional manipulation by summoning a vision of that Dr. Dickhead to try to convince Elle to murder people. Which, you know, I'm on her side. They do deserve it. But I also don't necessarily blame Elle for seeing that the guy had kids, not wanting to kill the guy that had kids, you know, like, yeah, agreed. He deserves it. He deserves to be choked out on his kitchen floor. But sympathy for the kids, I can't really argue against that. Although, like, yes, now that he has seen you and knows you're out there, definitely a greater risk now. Especially now that you've left him alive. But I can understand why she made the decision that she did. She has a good, valid reason for it. She has a good, valid reason for wanting to find anybody that she might be able to connect with because of, you know, the particular circumstances that she was in. And yeah, almost kills a guy, realizes she doesn't want to. I imagine there is some guilt in, like, getting to that point, though. And in, you know, well, it's not really her fault that they end up in trouble, though, right? Like, the gang, the kids were always going to be there and always going to be calling the cops. That wouldn't have changed if, like, he died faster or whatever. So there was always a chance, or a pretty good chance, of them, you know, getting caught and having to flee, which is where Elle and the gang are separated. And then once Elle and the gang are separated, she goes back to Hawkins. When Elle says she's been stupid, I presume she's talking about those two instances where she left the safety of the cabin and where she, you know, almost murdered a man who, let's be clear, essentially murdered her mom, like, for most intents and purposes. I think it's all just summarized by reckless, sure. Understandable, very. Extremely. Having these actions taken by a girl who's desperate to live a life, who's desperate for any kind of justice for being wronged by these people and this system. That's not stupid. Those wants are not stupid. She's not a brat for wanting to live a normal life and wanting justice for the horrible things done to her. That isn't the mark of, like, that isn't a sign of immaturity or ungratefulness. It's fucking normal that is a very reasonable response, a very, very reasonable courses of action given the circumstances that she's in. But they are called stupid and then just left at that. I think what really struck me when I heard that fucking line, I remember I was watching it with my friend. I had her pause the fucking show when she said that, and I went on a little mini rant. What I said was like, okay, so was seeing your sister stupid? Was meeting your sister stupid? Was that just, does that mean nothing to you? I don't think it would mean nothing to Elle. I think the writers just fucked up. I think that Elle has a lot going on as a character. We don't explore nearly as much of it in season 2, but you know, there's still vestiges there. And then the moment Jim Hopper hopped on screen, all gone. And at that point, it's all about him. He's a black hole or whatever. He's afraid of hurting the people he loves. Oh, fucking woe is you, dude. And I think that's like, that really solidified my position that season 1 was especially female focused, and that was just gone by the time season 2 came around. Because as soon as this old fucking bastard shows up on screen, it's suddenly about him and his pain and his fucking like shit going on. I just like, to be clear, we do need to acknowledge male trauma, and there is plenty, we like, there needs to be space for, you know, exploring the trauma of men in stories. But as I was, I think, accidentally saying there's already plenty of room for that. Perhaps not for particular types of male trauma, but you might notice that a lot of that male trauma that doesn't get talked about is very closely related to queerness. You know, go figure. And in a culture where the trauma of women is so often like overlooked or ignored or downplayed, having this horribly traumatized character whom had trauma that a season of television was almost kind of focused around be in the same space as a male character, and that male character's trauma taking clear precedent, that's so insulting. That's so ignorant. And that, I don't know, that there it is. That's it. Like, I don't know I have much else to say about the second season. The dialogue of the fucking gang that Elle's sister's a part of, cringe, corny. The effects look better. I like Steve. The conspiracy theorist guy seemed really invested in these teenagers fucking. That was weird. I've been told that the guy who plays that conspiracy theorist guy is like a piece of shit in real life. So, there you go. Just thought y'all should know. Aside from that, I don't know. We had this great little sci-fi romp, this nostalgic sci-fi story that takes a lot of notes from, you know, the classic stories of the 80s, and it's kind of like a little bit of campiness and this focus on like childhood or coming of age, and, you know, a sort of nameless, sort of faceless government threat, like this very, very slight gesturing towards some like systemic questioning, you know. and the government being the bad guys. But underneath all that is, the tales of modern storytelling, where we're going, what if women had feelings? To be clear, like, as in we're acknowledging that women have feelings that should be explored through narrative, because most stories through history have been very male focused. But, there's a lot of subtext there that are exploring themes that are very relevant to women, and the women in the story get a lot of like focus and are treated not just as humans, but like more human than is commonly seen in popular media. And then the second season, back to status quo. It's an enjoyable sci-fi romp. And the fucking guy at the Hawkins lab says, well, the old guys running the place, they're all dead now. So, you can trust us. And me, being aware of the world, goes, that's funny, get it? Because he's lying through his fucking teeth, because that's not how this stuff works. Because these are systemic issues, and like, I don't know, this building has those cells in them. What, did you demolish the cells? Are you entirely rebranding? No, you're doing the same fucking shit, just with different people. Because that's what happens. You can replace the people, but the systems still exist. It is the systems that need to go. Hawkins lab needs to fucking go. You can't just like make this a good thing. Oh, the orphan crushing factory has a different manager now. Great. Again, I'm snickering, thinking I'm snickering with the show, but no, the guy who says that turns out to be like a good guy, and he actually like pulls through on the promise. And oh, isn't he so bad? What are we doing? What do you mean? Are you fucking kidding me? Even the vague gesturing towards the government being bad is wrong, or at least misses the point. The government isn't bad because the people running it are bad, though they are. The government is bad because the way it is set up breeds corruption and exploitation. And it's why it needs just complete restructuring, not a change of hands. I want Trump out as much as any of you guys, but I hate to break it to you. Even if he leaves, the United States isn't going to be sunshine and rainbows from that point onward. You're barring the fact that, any bills that a Democrat president tries to pass will be filtered through the Great Red Wall. It's just set up in such a way that money will always win. And so long as that is the case, we're never going to have it good here. And I guess I just assumed that this show might have some awareness and recognize that, no, it is kind of the same way here, and it's the system that's broken. But no, it turns out he really is just a good guy. And, Hawkins Lab does need to go, but, at least there's good actors looking out for us. So, yeah, that was great, too. It was great seeing that. Well, I didn't lie. The deeper into this I got, the more angry I got, and the less I thought of this show, this season. I recognized that it takes some fucking cojones to have a protagonist call 11 of all characters a brat. But just, you lay it all out like that, it's like, holy shit. Who wrote this? Not to be rude, but I would hazard a guess that a man wrote it. That isn't to say that men can't write socially conscious stories. It's not to say that women can't write socially ignorant stories. These things, they happen. But I think we've had enough stories, fucking plenty of them, written by cis white dudes, enough to see the trends, and just this like fucking ignorance on display here. I mean, now that I think of it, it's like, can we chalk this up to ignorant male writers, or do we chalk this up to Stranger Things after blowing the fuck up, entering the machine of production, and those things are there because, you know, humanity was taken out of the production? Realistically, that's pretty much positively, certainly a factor. Like, again, as I said, the little touches, the little bits of subtext that were in the first season gone. And that's the kind of thing that happens when you have like a mass-produced piece of media. A boardroom doesn't tend to fucking take those kinds of things into consideration. So, I don't know, I guess if I were one of the Duffer Brothers looking over this show, I would point some of those things out and go, are you sure we can't change that? That seems bad. But I don't know. I've never worked in TV. I don't know what the process looks like. So maybe instead of doing what the, you know, guys on EFAP do and start pointing fingers at individual people, I should go, whatever like process made this, don't do that again. Because this is not good. I didn't like this one very much. I think you could do better. Do what you did with this first season. That was pretty good. All right. I don't know. We're gonna keep watching the show at some point. My friend, she's got a couple vacations laid out, but eventually we'll get around to watching the rest of it. Season 3, 4, and 5. I remember not liking I got like halfway through season 3 when it first came out. I remember not liking it very much because I had just, you know, tired old relationship drama. So I'm not particularly looking forward to that, but who knows? Maybe it's better than I initially thought. The one thing I'll give season 2 is that Max is the one who gets to put down her shithead brother and, you know, show him what for. But I also think that she was also a little disserviced by the narrative. She does get, you know, her apology from Lucas, but, you know, Elle totally brushing her off like that, combined with just the multiple times she's kind of ignored, and once again the narrative not really acknowledging the specific shittiness of that, being, you know, a girl ignored by a bunch of boys, you know, like, she gets that moment, and that's great. That's exactly what you would want from this story. But again, it's still missing a lot of the nuance and a lot of the attention to the fact that she is a girl, you know. Running theme, it seems. All right. Yeah, I mean, you could probably tell I'm wrapping up here. I'll be finishing the show. That's probably enough out of me. I'm kind of talked out and it's late. Go listen to Gonarch Slayer. It's good.